I'm Dr. Jay Anders, and this is Tell Me Where It Hurts, where we discuss some of the big challenges in health IT and how we can solve them so clinicians can do what they do best, care for patients. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Tell Me Where It Hurts. Today's guest has a major role in an EMR that's recently been associated now with Medicomp and its systems. But before we get into our guest today, I'd like to talk a little bit about a conversation I had actually just last week. I was on vacation, and I kind of used that time to catch up with a lot of my colleagues that I don't get to talk to very often. So I got to speak with one of my med school colleagues. He was a really, really good friend, and we spent a lot of time together in medical school, and he's practicing up in the Chicago area. And he was real interested in how I got involved with what I'm doing now, as opposed to practicing internal medicine for almost 20 years. And we talked a little bit about that, but I asked him, and his particular clinic is using one of the major EMRs, which I won't say the name of. So I asked him, I said, what's your biggest problem that you're having right now with healthcare IT? He said, well, I can't tell you one major problem. There's several. And he started on listening. So I kind of prioritized this a little bit. But two of the major things he talked about, which was very, very interesting, especially in this era of a pandemic, was the fact of interchange of information. Now, the Chicago area is very large, as everybody knows, and there's a lot of health systems up there, all of which don't really talk to each other very well. So they're trying to, especially in the state of Illinois, they're trying to really push vaccinations and figure out who's got the vaccine, who needs the vaccine, and how do they prioritize that. But he said, I can't get information on my patients as to who has been vaccinated except with my own organization. So we talked a little bit about that, and it's a problem with where do you put the information, who collects it, who keeps it, who validates it. And we talked a little about the CDC and how they started out having to deal with this. And he said, I just can't get a good picture of my patients. He said the second thing is when I do get things into his particular system, he has a really, really hard time in finding the real information about a patient. It's, coming over his page after page of a lot electronic free text. And he says, I can't find the information I'm actually looking for when I get it. So I wind up reading it, then re-inputting it back into my system if I get it from one of the systems that we really don't talk to very well. And that just really kind of drove home the point to me about interoperability and how we've kind of failed across the continuum here. And also the usability of current systems. We've got a lot of information that is now available electronically in these systems. The CEO of Medicomp calls it dumpster diving for data. When you have to go into these systems, try to find something and get the real information you need as a clinician. I asked him, I said, well, do you get any input on what happens with your system? He says, no. Says these major systems are not innovating, and he just doesn't understand why. So we're going to talk to today's guest, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Talk EHR. Her name is Iram Fatima, and she has recently started to incorporate a additional technology that should alleviate some of that, and she's going to tell us kind of all about that. So Dr. Iram, welcome to Tell Me Where It Hurts. So I'm going to let you describe a little bit about your background and kind of how you got involved with this particular project after being a physician actually practicing medicine.
Hey, Dr. J, thank you so much for inviting me over to your podcast. I'm really excited to be, a guest over here. Yes, so my name is Dr. Iram, and I did my MBBS from Pakistan. I'm like a graduate from Rawalpindi Medical College in Pakistan. And then I did my diploma in sonology back in Pakistan there, and was, a registered medical practitioner working in a hospital. I joined CareCloud in 2014 as a medical officer. And I was like really thrilled. Oh, so this was a slightly different than, a lot of other guests I heard the podcast about. So uh, I wasn't, coming from a background where I actually was using EHR and all that related stuff. We were completely doing things on paper. So for me, in MTBC, or now the CareCloud, the EMR or EHR was the first experience, and I was really thrilled to see that how so many things are like well organized, and it has so many things to offer to the clinicians and to the patients, which is like mind blowing for me. And then I started getting into more and more, starting with one module, giving some suggestions on it, how the things are, and then starts overseeing the whole product. So the interesting thing was that it started off with one or two clinical modules where they just needed an opinion from myself as a doctor. So they were all the technical people, all from the IT side, and they are just kind of getting some feedback from the real doctors. And one of them was me. And I was like, when I first look into this, I literally just laugh off, because it was all about what they perceived it should be. Like the clinical things were arranged in a fashion that I was like, okay, why we are doing it in this way? Then I kind of just tell them the whole flow, that as a doctor I would like to see these fields over here, as a doctor I would like to see things like this. And then while doing the whole thing, I kind of think about more things which we can use, which we can do using the technology, which really hits our to us hits us to a point that okay, we wanted to have our own EHR. So it's where we started working on the Talk HR as a separate product. Before this, CareCloud does have another legacy product, which is named by Web EHR. So we started working on the model of Talk EHR. Then comes like the new things in the technology, like what else we can offer. It's just a product, it works. We have so many other products. What we need here to make it like, really, we really need to make some difference in the industry. So how we can just do that? So we started seeing the artificial intelligence part of it, the voice features, the blockchain technology. So as a doctor, all these things were pretty new to me. So I was like, just kind of figure out, thinking back and forth, that how we can utilize these things in our benefit. So that's how I start getting into this. I kind of, think in a manner that, okay, if there are voice assistants in other platforms, like you have, Alexa, you have other voice assistant, and they're performing your day-to-day functions, why we cannot use them in medicine? Why we cannot have a assistant for a doctor? So it's where we started working on the Ellison, and Ellison is like the first industry healthcare voice recognition, assistant. It start, performing certain functions. We start training it out, and then we actually have in our system a voice assistant, which actually, you don't need a third-party tool to do your dictations or perform certain functions. Ellison can do that. So this is like, this is how I started working on it. And when I see, like, when I came to US and see that what other people are working in the industry and how we are moving as a whole, like this Medicom thing, when I saw the templates and I saw how the whole thing is functional, it's like really interesting for me. So far I am like not a burned out physician. I'm like, on the other side, I'm like more excited with the technology and all that. So yes.
So tell me a little bit about your frustrations and what you see in EMR design and what you're trying to address that really hasn't been addressed very well across the industry.
Yeah, so the frustration is on the both sides. I mean, the physicians definitely, they have a lot on their plate, so they have a burned out. There is no discussion about this, but it goes on both sides. There is a lot of frustration on the IT side too. I'll be talking on both sides because I'm working, or I'm in a role that I can give you a background from both ends. Physicians are quite reluctant to the changes, and you always want to do the things you are doing for a long time. So bringing physicians to this mode that, okay, you don't need to be tech savvy, you are tech savvy. Like, we hear that a lot. Okay, the physician is not tech savvy, so he has, difficulties adapting to the changes. You are like not using, everybody's using iPhone or the smartphones or the new technology. People have the new laptops and they kind of like, get new cards and get used to all the features and everything. But when it comes to the EHR, or when it comes to the healthcare technology or their office, they completely went old fashioned. Oh no, we are not going to talk to the computers. That's one of the difficulties we face on the physician side. On the other side, IT people, they are like so much in their head about the medical jargons, about the terms like, rituximab tablet. Oh no, okay, I'm not sure what this is, and I'm not gonna work on it. Or they take it in some such a way that, okay, this is like something coming from some other planet. So these medical terminologies is such a roadblock or a fear with for them, that most of the time when they're not doing things right, they have an explanation that, okay, these are the medical terms involved in it, that's why we couldn't get it. So it's like, frustration on both ends. And I think the best way of how I just tell them that, okay, just take it from your everyday examples. From the physician side, when you are giving them some instructions to the IT people, you have to like tell them what are you going to achieve out of it. So one of the examples I can give you, I was working on an anesthesia intra-op form. You probably have seen that anesthesia intra-op form where they have like all the listed medications, the patient vital monitoring, and everything in one page. So that form was given to the developers to design and bring up a design for the doctors to to produce as an application. So you'll find all the funny things there. The temperatures are going somewhere else, and blood pressure is somewhere else. The time frame is somewhere else. They mostly focused on providing every functionality with good UI, and you just click here and a pop-up opens up and your things are here. And I was like, okay, but this is not practical. I mean, you don't want to open a temperature pop-up like 10 times because you're monitoring every 5 minutes. So it's like a number of click every 2 seconds. You record one meeting and reading, and then it's the time of next reading. So if a doctor is just sitting and recording those numbers up, he won't be able to take care of the patient. If patient is on the OT table, his responsibility is not filling that form. His responsibility is taking care of the patient. So we have to find out intuitive way of filling the form, just like we do it on the paper. So the provider can like get off his stuff, that he don't need to click so many things. He can just sit and take care of the patient. That's his major responsibility. So to give them that idea what we want to achieve and how the workflow is really important. And that's a frustration because a number of doctors are not in that role. A number of people are not in that role, explaining the IT that, okay, this is the problem. So because of this disconnect, you'll face a number of applications. We have like plenty of applications and everybody is complaining about it. So complaints from the IT is different, the complaints from the doctors is different. So I think this is the major, disconnect. And then the skill set, like you'll see data scientist, you'll see a number of web services people, the technology people. They're specialized in their own field, but we don't have a specialist in IT who is specialized basically in healthcare IT. So they don't have a background of healthcare IT. All they have is their own experience when they're visiting to a doctor. So that experience is not sufficient enough to actually build a workflow. So the doctor team, they don't want to talk to these IT developers. And I think at some level, the tables, the database, and all the language they use is get to a point that, okay, nobody wants to talk to each other. They want something, they are going to do that, but they cannot connect. So that's the biggest frustration.
So going forward, I mean, you have the opportunity now to really kind of steer, design, point people in the right direction. So how do you think what's your approach going to be to how does CareCloud and all of its products differentiate itself from all the other stuff that's out there? And I use the word stuff on purpose because a lot of it is just stuff. It wasn't designed for a physician. It was designed to collect a code and submit a bill. And we are moving away from that into how do I demonstrate I'm actually caring for a patient and treating them, making them better. So it's not about recording everything on the planet. It's starting to be, what do I record as a physician that demonstrates that I've addressed a patient with their particular set of illnesses, and how am I going to make them better? And it's just not going to be the same anymore. So how do you feel? What do you think is going to happen, and how you're going to differentiate that for the future?
Yeah, so I believe that we in the CareCloud with the right mindset and with the technology. So number one thing which we believe as a technology company, that technology can do anything. That's a strong belief that using these machines, using these available tools these days, you can achieve anything. And then we look for the right partners, we look for the right vendors. So one of the things which I like about, if I'm talking particularly about Medicom, because we are a self-grown EMR company, we usually don't prefer to use third-party vendors a lot. Unless we kind of mimic everything, or we kind of develop everything on our own. So all the EMR system, whether it has like any fields, any the challenge, any APIs, anything we have in our system is home built system. So that's one thing. But when I see Medicom, so the biggest thing is that it's easy, and in one click you will get the right information. So that kind of things I think is really helpful as a if I'm talking about CareCloud. So in CareCloud, we really are looking for the right partners. We really have a clear mindset that what we are trying to achieve. The biggest thing is that designing a workflow, end-to-end workflow, that okay, if a patient is here, why the patient is there, if a physician is using the system, why he needs to use the system, what exactly, we always focus on what exactly is going to be happen in the end. We don't want doctor to just ask about tobacco questions, ask about what medicine he's taking, and then document in the regular way. There should be some better goal of having all that information. And we on the CareCloud side are educating doctors as well as educating our own developers, that why whatever we are doing, why this is important. And I think that's the important thing for in the industry, and that actually leading us to the level where we are today, because we are focusing on making it better day by day, but we are focusing that what we are going to achieve out of it. So analytical portions, and the portions where a number of medical field, in medical field, there are like a lot of medicines to remember, there are a lot of triads, there are a lot of things to diagnose the patient. So we kind of mimic those flows in a way that how naturally system can help them at every step to take things off their memory. Why every doctor needs to think about what dosage is better for this patient, why the system cannot think for them. Because you know that with the advancement in the technology, there are so many things which are possible. And in CareCloud, we are thinking on those lines. I think that differentiates us from the other vendors in the industry.
Well, one of the things that Medicomp has strived to do over its 40 years is to try to mimic what a physician will need at the point of care when they're seeing a patient, without having to remember every nuance and detail of every disease. So that's the way we kind of designed that particular aspect of what we provide. So it's good to talk about someone who's interested in actually augmenting a physician's capability. Interestingly, as a physician, I really 98% of the time, I knew exactly what the patient had. It was not a problem at all figuring it out. The problem was trying to get it all down in a form that can be acceptable for billing, which is what it used to be. But now it's shifted a little bit. It's how am I actually going to plan the care for this particular patient? The 2% of the time when I really didn't kind of know and you start to struggle a little bit, then that's when systems can think for you and can help you remember, oh, by the way, that particular physical finding goes with this particular disease. Oh, they have it. Now I'm thinking about that again. And it's interesting how physicians, at least me, get reminded, oh, yeah, in that particular sign, shoot, I should, yeah, because there's thousands of these things. And to have the system augment that capability of thinking, I think is extremely, extremely important. One of the other things I'd like to talk a little bit about with you is telemedicine. COVID-19 in all of its variants has really kind of put a strain on the healthcare system in such a way that we didn't anticipate. And when you're talking about a very communicable disease, even going to the doctor's office can be somewhat risky. Even everybody's masked before the vaccines came out, there's a lot of issues with that. So a lot of people sought care over the phone, video calls, phone calls, to keep things going. But now I see the paradigm shifting that telemedicine might be a major portion, especially for the delivery of primary care, routine follow-up for chronic cases. So tell me a little bit about how CareCloud is going to be addressing that and your background in that.
Yes, thank you. So I believe that before even COVID, CareCloud was really, working on this telehealth line because we see an opportunity. So with my background, I was working in a hospital back in Pakistan. And this was a remote hospital. I was like overseeing a number of trainings and managerial related stuff over there, the staff training. And then because of the nature of the work over there or the geography of that hospital, we cannot travel to that area. That's like, a very far off remote area. So all we have, we look into the options and all we have is the telehealth option. So we thought, let's just try to do it online. It started online. We started seeing patients online. So one of the challenges we have over there are that there are like very less number of doctors. So in case of emergency, they don't have any doctor available at night, especially. So we needed someone to cover at night. And we thought, let's just try to do it over telehealth call. We have like paramedic staff who take the patients, who take all the history, and then when the examination and other thing comes up, we engage doctors from in our Islamabad. So that's how we started doing it, and that was a success. Then we moved to a point that we even started doing ultrasounds, X-ray reporting, and everything on the telehealth, and we full-fledged go live with the telehealth model, and it successfully run the whole hospital over there. So that gives us an idea that, okay, we can do the same thing for our other clinicians in US. So we started integrating telehealth in Talk EHR. So it's somewhat around, 2017 or 18, we started working on it. There's so many challenges. Number one challenge is that we don't have any regulations. We don't have any authorities who give us any regulations. So we weren't sure that if whether we are compliant, how we should make ourselves compliant. There are a number of requests when we are talking to other people. There were requests that we should be recording, we should not be recording, or so those other medical formalities, that how we should be conducting. Then we need to keep in mind the patient's safety. Then we have to keep in mind how the patient will perceive it. So with all those challenges, we still thought to just move ahead because that's very exciting for, at least for me. That's how I run the whole hospital over there. So we started working on it, and by 2019, I believe we first rolled our first solution out. The adaptation is very low because insurance companies are not paying for telehealth visits. So the doctors were not very particularly interested to start utilizing it. I even remember that one or two doctors who are like are very, very good doctors, and they were like telling me that, okay, doctor, no, this is not the path you are taking. This is not going to be successful. And I was like, no, I already had a success story around it. So I have a firm belief that this is going to hit the market. So they were like, no, no, we think CareCloud is not on the right lines. You should be focusing more on the product and, the existing things. You should add this form, you should add that form. And I was like, yes, we are working on the product and one line, but I believe telehealth is the important thing, and we should be adapting to the new things in the industry. And all of a sudden, the COVID hits, and then everybody was like, asking for this feature, and we luckily have that, available. So insurers start paying, then we see a lot of movement from the government and other authorities. So things like, moving forward. And now those doctors, they are doing telehealth. Now they don't need to do it, but still they are doing it because they felt that it's really important for them. I know one of their doctors, he's doing half of the time, like, after hours, or half of the time he see patient inpatient, and half of the day he spend seeing patient online. And he's like very happy because half of, there are a lot of calls other than inpatient visits. There are a lot of calls you have to take from the patient, from the pharmacy, from any other, places, talking to another clinician. So all that is well managed now. He don't need to take a call while he's like away. He can ask the patient to schedule a telehealth call, and he can actually see the patient and in front of his system, and can see all his records and can document that visit and get paid for it. So he is like, he said, forget what I said in the past. I'm really happy with this one. So I believe telehealth is the important thing. And if I see myself, I'm working in the office, and I have like back to back calls. If I have to talk to my doctor, though I don't have one, but if I have to talk to my doctor, I can like schedule a visit without taking a day or half, or a day off. So it's really easy, unless you actually have to go there and for some procedure.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I was thinking back when I was taking night calls, how lovely it would have been to actually say, why don't we just get online? Let me take a look at you. It would have taken a lot of the fog out of what I was trying to do at that point in time. And I was one of those physicians that thought, oh my gosh, telehealth, what a dangerous thing. You're not actually putting your hands on people and seeing them and all of that. And I'm very happy to say I was proven very, very wrong, because I was one of the old school. I just had a birthday. So now I'm thinking, okay, this could actually work. And what's interesting is a lot of new devices are coming out for telehealth. So you can actually look in ears and throats and listen to hearts and things like that you couldn't do. So I do believe it's going to be the wave of the future. So let's switch a little bit to IT, and then we'll start to wrap up a little bit. My friend, who practices close to Chicago, is having a real hard time sharing data. And we've got the Cures Act requirements coming up in the United States. All that's been implemented. And what's going to be CareCloud's approach to doing that, actually starting to share data of meaningful volumes?
Yes. So, Dr. J, I'm not sure if you're aware, we are the first company which started working on blockchain technology for medical field, because we really, really want to go into the interoperability line. So if I look at myself, I always think that if I'm a doctor, which EMR I would choose and why? And if I'm a patient, what would I like? So whether my EMR is providing that to the doctor, or whether my patient portal is providing that to my patient, because somewhere I'm a doctor, somewhere I'm a patient as well. So it's directly affecting me. So whenever we are designing anything, we keep ourselves there that, okay, we are surviving in the same industry. We are maybe the leveraged one, got opportunity to work in such platform. But if we are on the other end, like, the receiving end, what would we like? So we started working on the blockchain with the same mindset that we wanted to share everything. So for my personal experience, when I was like in my, during my pregnancy, I get my same test done like thrice, because the hospital doesn't care what my primary care physician is doing, and my primary care physician wants to do that anyway, because she has a protocol and she needs to get that done. So I believe my down screening was done like 3 times. And I, as a doctor, I asked them that why do you, I'm like not even of that age. So I'm not in the high risk area. Like, why you are conducting it 3 times? And they were like, no, this is the protocol. Hospital have their own protocol, the physician have their own protocol, and the OBGYN have their own protocol. But it cost me the mentally it cost me. I have to, undergo their blood work. And then it cost me financially. So, I mean, all these things actually get us to the point that, okay, no, interoperability is the must thing. And you will be surprised to know, because it's my experience. So I wasn't aware that there are certain EMRs who have a patient portal which you actually have to pay for as an addition. So they don't share a patient portal to their clients, because to their patients, because they have to pay extra for that. So with all that cost and everything going on with this extra thing, they were like, whenever you need something, just call us. How many times you want to call to your OBGYN, and then they have a whole process of giving or releasing some information. I was like, because I'm a physician myself, I can understand what is going on. I actually am a sonologist, so I was looking at my ultrasound myself. So I don't need to call them a number of times, but I'm thinking that as a patient, if someone is in my shoe, they must be like really anxious what is going on around. So I mean, that's something is really hitting me, and I think interoperability is the important thing for us. We are very open to create any interfaces wherever is required by the client, required by any of the government bodies. And CureSect is our top priority right now. We are working on the new standards, USCID standards, and we openly give all the reports to our EMR. Like, you can download your CCDA as a patient, as a doctor. So you will have a complete hold on whatever the record is there. So, I mean, this is a compliance requirement from the CMS, so we have to do it, but we would love to do it if that's not the case. There was some discussion going on that if we can share our providers' data with each other, so it will help them referring the patient internally in the system. But because of like so many other things, we weren't sure that providers would like their details to go open in this way. But otherwise, we are like, working around the clock to think that, okay, how well we can share data with each other, and just to make our system available in a way that nobody will undergoing another additional procedure or another step, just because the systems are not working or the doctors are not trusting each other's reports.
Well, I'm going to ask you the final question that I ask all my guests. It's kind of simple, sometimes pretty hard. If you had a magic wand and you could change anything in healthcare IT, what would you change?
That's a tricky side, like from the doctor side or from the IT side. I'm representing both of them.
Well, we're both physicians. Why don't you pick the physician side?
Okay. Because I'm like leading this product, so I think the mindset is the one I would really be focusing on. As a physician, we need to make ourselves open to the technology now. I'm not sure, like trust me, I wasn't the one I am right now. I wasn't an advocate of technology. I'm old school too. I love books. I've never thought that I'm going to deal with the systems anyway in any time in my life. That wasn't my goal. But when I saw the potential the technology has to offer, so I believe the change, and the openness to accept the changes is something I really want to see in if I can change overnight, I would like to change this. The mindset that, okay, we are not tech savvy, or this change is difficult for us, or this change is going to disrupt everything for us. I think we see this thing a lot in our practice, that, okay, if they are going to change a system, they are really apprehensive, and they were like, oh, can we have the same flow which we are doing in the other system, or can we use it in the same way? Instead, they should be like open to the changes, that, okay, if something is something new is going to be offered to them, that's actually going to help them out. So I believe it's like I'm speaking from both ends. right now, not just as a physician.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right.
But I think that's the thing I wanted to change. That if these people are collaborating, like the IT and doctors, if they can have like a better collaboration and they are open to changes on both sides, I think that's something I really wish to see.
There's a lot of us that would like to see that change as well. So if someone wants to get a hold of you and talk to you further or talk a little bit about Talking HR or what you do, how would they do that?
Yes, so we have our web portal. You'll find everything about our company, about what we are doing, about the new changes. That's at carecloud.com. That's our website. And then for further on the Talkie HR domain side, we have talkiehr.com. So you can go there, you can create your own account on Talkie HR. You can have the full experience for a limited time and see that how this fits to your practice. And most of the time, like, see what we have to offer, like from our artificial intelligence engine and from other things we are doing in the same the other applications we are giving to our clients. And now we are just going with live with Medicom, so just to see that how this works for them. I think they're gonna love it.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for being my guest today, and I wish you all the success because some of that is linked to us. So very good.
Thank you so much, Dr. J.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening to Tell Me Where It Hurts. Tune in to Healthcare Now Radio and Podcast Network each month for the latest episode. To learn more about Medicomp systems, visit our website at www.medicomp.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at MedicompSys or myself at MedicompDoc, or check out the show notes for links. See you next time.